Morning, welcome to this interviewing skills workshop. How are you both doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, good, thanks. You?
Good, yeah, not too bad, thank you. So you're here to sort of look at your interviewing skills and try and brush up on it. And obviously, as managerial positions, you may be looking to recruit in the future. So this will give you a good sort of basic foundation to go out and be able to do that.
Perfect.
So first off, I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Kieran. I'm the Learning and Development Manager for UKRI. Can I just get you to introduce yourself, Amy?
So I'm Amy. I am a project manager within Innovate for the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund.
Excellent. And Carl?
Yep, I'm an ops manager in ops at Innovate UK.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I'm just going to sort of go through the outline of the session. So I'm going to go through some ground rules in a second, just to set the tone for the session. And we're going to do an icebreaker just to get to know each other a little better. What we're going to do is we're going to go through, I'll do an introduction in terms of aims for the session, and we'll do a bit of Q&A so I can better understand your learning, and we can sort of go through some different techniques to use while going through interviews. And then what we'll do is we'll do a role play based on what you've learned. One of you will be the candidate, one of you will be the panel member asking the questions. And then after this, we'll do sort of a reflection, what we've learned, so when any questions that you have, you can ask, and I'll also signpost you to the resources as well. So moving on, in terms of ground rules, so not too many. I want it to be a free-flowing fun session as much as possible. But can I ask that you don't look at any work emails, close Outlook if you've got it, make sure everything's closed just so you're not distracted, make sure doors are shut, windows are shut, depending on if you've got noises around you. Can I ask that you mute yourself as well when I'm sort of talking through the presentation? Just helps just in case you get any background noise. So if you can do that, that would be great. Ask that you're respectful of other people's opinions. Obviously, it's a confidential arena as well, so anything that is said in here stays in here. So just our free and safe environment for you to speak in. So moving on from that, we're going to do a little icebreaker. So you can just take yourselves off mute for now, if that's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to do a common icebreaker that you've probably heard of in various other sessions. So it's called 2 truths, 1 lie. So you think of 3 statements, 2 are truths and 1's a lie, and we have to guess which one's the lie. Just gets us to get a little bit more about you, and makes the session a little bit more informal. So what I'll do is I'll give you sort of 30 seconds just to have a think about that, and we'll come back in a second.
I think can cap on now.
Absolutely.
So it can be anything. It can even be something boring. Just obviously don't make 2 boring and 1 exciting, because we'll know which one's a lie. So
I think I thought of some. I'm ready when you guys are.
You've got another 10 seconds. Hey, Carl, you managed to think of something?
Yeah, okay. So I have 1 daughter and 2 grandchildren. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. And I live alone with my dog.
So 2 brothers, 1 sister. Sorry, what was the other one?
I have 1 daughter and 2 grandchildren.
1 daughter and 2 grandchildren. And the final one was?
I live alone with my dog.
Hmm. What do you think,
What are
Amy?
the name? What's the names of your grandchildren? And what,
Holly and Harry.
how about your dog?
Fido.
Fido. Oh, okay, interesting name. What breed is Fido?
A Jack Russell.
Are you Yappy then?
Yeah.
I don't know if Fido is a great Jack Russell name.
Hmm. And what was the third one? Sorry, so you've got two brothers.
No, I have two brothers and one sister.
Yeah.
I have one daughter and two grandchildren, and I live alone with my dog Fido.
I mean, for me, it's the name of the dog is very odd, and I apologise if that's the truth, but odd name for a dog. I'd be interested to know who named your dog, Carl.
It had that name when I got it already.
Oh, so was it a rescue dog? Was it?
It was, yes.
Okay. And are you close with your brothers?
One of them I am, yes.
That sounds like it could be a truth because we've got a bit of debate going on. I think I'm still going to go with the dog as the lie.
We're going with the dog.
Yeah, for me it's the dog.
Carl, can you reveal the truth?
I can reveal I don't have a dog called Fido. I have a cat,
Ah, very nice. And what's your cat called?
Petra.
Petra. That's a great name.
Mm.
It's better than Fido.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Amy?
Yes. So I have never watched Bambi. When I was younger, I was one off a black belt in karate, so I was a brown belt. And also when I was younger, I represented my school for Kent in cross country.
So we've got cross country, karate, and what was the first one again? Sorry?
Never watched Bambi.
Never watched Bambi. I feel like everyone's watched Bambi.
Yeah, I can't believe that she wouldn't have seen Bambi at some point. I could quite see her being one below black belt in karate, or was it judo?
Is it
Right.
definitely brown though? Is it definitely brown? Or has she mixed the colours up?
She might well have done actually, yeah. And then the cross country thing, I don't see necessarily that you would be a cross country runner. I don't think that kind of fits with me. I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable with that. So I think that's the lie.
You think that's the lie, Carl? I would
Yeah,
say
I do.
I used to run 200 meters when I was a kid. I can't run 200 meters now. Like,
That is, yeah. Well, yeah, there is that. There is that.
so you do lose a bit of a speed.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. So I think the one that stands out for me is the lie is the cross country.
they go in the cross country.
Yeah.
All right, Amy, which one's the lie?
So you were both incorrect. The lie was karate. I never did karate.
Oh.
Ah,
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did run. I can't run anymore.
yeah.
But-
That was, yeah. Oh, well done. You had us fooled. We knew you'd watched Bambi. That.
Yeah.
No, I haven't watched Bambi. That's the truth. I've never watched
Oh,
Bambi.
you've never watched Bambi?
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Good. Don't watch it. You'll cry.
I won't put it on there.
It's very sad. Very sad.
Excellent. Well, thanks both. So what we'll do now is we'll go on to sort of the aims and objectives for the session. So by the end of this session, hopefully we'll know how to conduct an interview effectively. You'll learn how to develop your knowledge and interviewing skills. And we'll go through, as advised, be able to practice your interview skills with each other, which will hopefully help when you go into the real deal and you have recruitment selections yourself and doing interviews. So those are the objectives for this session. So first off, we're going to go sort of back to basics. So the interview starts as soon as the candidate enters the office. They're already making judgments about the building, about the people, and ultimately they will be the ones deciding if this is a place they would like to work. So my first question is, how do you think you should be setting the scene for external people coming into the organization, coming in for an interview? Feel free to take yourselves off mute for this. And just sort of throw ideas.
Well, very friendly, I'd say. You don't, although you need a level of professionalism,
Mm-hmm.
you need a little bit more of a relaxed vibe as well. It's not like it's too serious, I'd say.
Yeah, so it would start when the candidate entered the reception in the building and the welcome they got. And then when you go down, and if you were to go down and personally meet them, you would just introduce yourself, just check they're okay, how their journey was, just so you can ascertain that whether the journey was a nightmare, whether they're a bit sort of stressed and a bit hot and flustered.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a chance to calm down.
Ideally, make sure you've got them booked in as a visitor. That could be a good
Yeah.
Sure you're organised.
Yeah. You want to take them into the room, offer them a seat,
Mm-hmm.
check if they want any water or anything, and just double check that they're comfortable, they're not too hot or not too cold in the room. Make sure they've got everything they need, if they need a pen for anything or paper for anything, and talk them through what the sort of agenda would be for the interview. So what will happen during the time they're with you.
Okay, what do you think, Amy? Do you think that kind of sums it up, or do you think there's some other points to add there?
I didn't hear if you said, Carl, about maybe offer them a drink. Definitely, obviously, like Carl said, making sure they got there okay. You just got to do the sort of small talk to start with, just make them feel a little bit relaxed, I guess. It's the worst.
Making sure they're engaged and
when you go to an interview and you just feel out of place and there's no one that's sort of friendly. That could be the worst. I guess just making sure they feel comfortable, relaxed, prepared, so that they can sort of, I guess, perform their best as well as us.
Mm-hmm. You make I think you'll both make some very good points. So I just noted down some points myself, which some of them you have touched upon. So the first one is, have you encountered for any reasonable adjustments before? So you mentioned booking in as a visitor. That's obviously priority number one, making sure they're there. There's nothing worse than turn up at reception and no one knows where they're meant to be. But in line with that, you may have booked them a car parking space, so that, as Carl said, if they've had a bad journey, the worst thing they want to do is come to the office and find out they've got nowhere to park, because that'll only add to the stress. Another thing to think about is obviously accessibility. So if you do know that they have a disability, have you looked to see if there's ground floor rooms available, just to make sure that it's accessible to the candidate? Preparation, so kind of like you said, being ready to receive them, making sure you're on time. Usually a candidate will try and get to an interview at least 15 minutes before it's due to start. So it's always best to ensure you're also ready and prepared to take them when they're there. There's nothing worse than if they've got there 15 minutes early and then you're running 15 minutes late, they then have to wait for half an hour. So it doesn't set a good impression. So yeah, always ensure you're ready, the room's ready, and you're ready to go out and receive the candidate. Small thing, but is the room tidy and the corridors tidy leading up to the room? There's nothing worse than, again, this sort of goes back onto the impression. You're walking down a corridor into a room, it's messy, chairs everywhere, tables everywhere, paperwork everywhere. So it's just sort of doing a sweep before the interview due to start and making sure that if you were the candidate, is this the type of place that you would want to come in and have your interview and potentially then work for? And then, as you both touched upon, do you have water glasses prepared for everyone in the interview? It's only a small thing, but always just helps with that, setting the sort of interview room up. And you do a lot of talking, so naturally you're going to want to drink. So worst thing is you have someone having an interview and they get halfway through and then everyone's got to dry through and can't speak. So you want to be able to facilitate the interview as much as you can, and having water and glasses prepared will see help with that. So I think, yeah, you raised some really good points and covered most of what I had. So that's a very good start. So moving on. So in the interview, obviously poor practice, and by not interviewing effectively, organizations can leave themselves at a detriment. So these are negative things that can happen to an organization should you not conduct an effective interview, recruitment and selection process. So I just want to get a couple of your ideas as to what you think, by having a bad interview, what that could do to the organization.
Well, for me, word of mouth is a really big thing. So if you've got a candidate that had a poor experience, they could go telling sort of their friends or other experts who'd want in our business. So I think it could really make a bad reputation for us as a company.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point.
Yeah, I think that's the main really, but also it doesn't really give a very good impression of you as a hiring manager, and it doesn't give them a good overall experience really, and probably they will probably avoid applying for other roles in the future that they could well be suitable for, just based on a poor experience of an interview there, probably ever applying again.
Yeah, so not only are you affecting other people's reputation, in terms of friends, like so local people, there's also, they might not come back, and actually there may be other roles that they're suitable for.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good point. Outside of reputation, can you think of anything else that, by having a poor interview and potentially selection process, could affect the organization?
I guess it could be time wasting and cost.
Yeah.
If you yourself don't know how to conduct an interview,
Yeah,
not interview very well, meaning you're going to have to go out for second rounds of recruitment when actually you'd refined your own interview, you might have done better, I guess.
no, that's definitely a good point. Yeah, Carl, did you have something you want to tell us?
Yeah, also I was going to say, if you don't actually give a very good interview and you don't really get to know the candidate very well, the candidate may feel hard done by when maybe they get rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I wasn't given the opportunity to actually showcase my talents and my skills because I had a really, really poor interview. It wasn't well prepared. The questions weren't relevant to the role.
Mm-hmm.
So that candidate just feels that it's probably a waste of time.
Yeah, no, definitely. So again, I've just made a few points that you have touched upon a few of these, but I'll just go through them. So as Amy touched upon, you do incur additional costs, because if you have to do the interview again, that's your time. So it's obviously your sort of wages are being done on that. You've potentially got to go out and recruit again, as Amy said. So that's more advertising, it's more people power, it's all of it adds up. So yeah, it's definitely worth getting it right the first time, even just from a pure cost perspective. Again, leads into additional time to hire. If you've got to do the process all over again, you're losing that productivity from when you could have had someone in a lot quicker had you done the interview selection process correctly. Whereas again, as Amy mentioned, if you have to go out again, you got to hire, and it will just inevitably take longer. Potential for complaints. So Carl, kind of what you touched upon, if they don't feel like they've been able to give and showcase their skills, they may think that that's due to potential discrimination. Obviously it might not be, but the way to make an effective interview means you avoid this, because like you said, you're able to let the candidate showcase their skills, and then if they are not successful, then they know they've had that chance. Whereas, as you say, if they've not had that chance, it may leave them with a bad taste in the mouth, and that might escalate to a potential complaint. Reputation's the big one that you picked on straight away. Is if you don't have a good interview process, the candidate tells local people, family, friends, they then tell their family and friends, and within a week 100 people will now not look at your company to potentially even just looking at adverts or even applying. So yeah, and from there it can just manifest. So yeah, it definitely is a reputational risk there. And sort of leading to additional time to hire, you got low productivity. So either by losing someone and not being able to replace them efficiently, or even by doing an ineffective process and you actually select someone who's not right for the job. So they come in, and because you haven't been able to probe that skill set, that you find out that actually they can't do X, Y, and Z as effectively as you'd hoped, and then you have to spend more time training. They're not as effective at the job as they could be, and therefore a low productivity. Okay, so we'll flip that on its head. So what would you deem as a good interview process?
Definitely having a good structure. I think you always have structure to an interview.
Yeah, and also I think you've got to find the level between you as an interviewer and the interviewee talking. You don't be doing all the talking as an interviewer. You want the interviewee to do most of the talking, because you want to find out, obviously, you know, more about them and about their previous experiences and how they can, how and what they can bring to the role, whether they're a good team fit, etc. So that's always good. And I would say very much it's about the questions you use. So it's about using a mixture of open, closed, probing questions to obviously find out and get that candidate to open up. Because most people are nervous at interviews, and if you're not nervous, then there's something wrong. Because if you're not nervous, then that doesn't show passion, and if you're nervous, passion. So yeah, very much having a good, nice flow, natural two-way conversation between, you know, you and the interviewee is essential.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think you're right there. We all think we won't be nervous, but if it's a role you really care about, then that'll show through.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you wanted to add, Amy?
I guess just being prepared as a hiring manager.
Definitely, yeah.
Make sure you've got your sort of set questions. I guess actually making sure the questions are relevant to the role as well. You're not advertising for one particular role and your questions are completely irrelevant. I guess just being prepared and actually make sure that when the candidate's there in front of you, you know what you're going to ask and sort of what you're sort of expecting as an answer, sort of, I guess.
Yeah, so sort of planning, making sure you're prepared. Yeah, no, definitely. That's yeah. Any other ideas at all?
Yeah, I would also say just making the candidate aware that they've got the information they need. So they've got the address if they're coming to the building, they've got a Zoom link if it's over Zoom, they've got who they're meeting, the panel members are. If there's anything they need to prepare in advance, they know what that is, and they know whether they've got to deliver it during the interview or send it in advance. Yeah, you know, and they know what time they're due for the interview and how long the interview will last.
Yeah.
And I think then also you need to make sure that if it's multi-panel, so, you know, 3 people on the panel interviewing one candidate, that everybody knows what they're going to be doing, what questions they're going to be asking. So it doesn't look like it's amateurish, it's got to look professional and sleek. So you don't want to waste that person's time. So you need to make sure that you don't ask too many questions and you run over time, because then the next candidate's going to be late, etc. So it has a knock-on effect. So
no, definitely,
it's key, and just knowing what the structure of that interview is going to be. No,
that's right. And actually, I think if I move on, preparation is key. Look at that. So you completely nailed on the head my first point. So yeah, no, definitely preparation is definitely key, and making sure that you're ready for the day or the half a day, depending on how many interviews you've got. So no, I totally agree. Setting the scene. So obviously there was touched upon, you sort of, when the candidates in the room, sort of let them know how the interviews, obviously they would have had hopefully an introduction in terms of when they were invited to interview, but again, just reinforcing the layout and structure of the interview on the day. kind of what you touched upon, kind of sort of making sure the discussion is open, making sure it's two-way conversation through positive language. How to do this? What do you think? Sort of asking open questions. Again, touched upon time management. It's no fair if the panel gets asked all the questions and then you go, sorry, we've run out of time at the end. Because it is a two-way process. The candidate will have questions that they want to ask. And finally, just to round off, obviously, make sure you thank them for their time. They've made the effort to come to the interview. They've prepared for the interview. And ultimately, you can't hire everyone. So it's always important to keep those relationships just in case, sort of going back to the whole reputational aspect of if they don't feel that their time was valued, they may feed that back to other people and that can cause reputation loss. And then finally, sort of advising on next steps. So if that's another assessment or if it's potential offer, but making sure that you're realistic on timescales. So they know when to expect notification, they know when to expect potential results. So how to ask questions during the interview. So again, you touched upon during the previous slide, Carl, so ensure everyone is prepared beforehand and the questions are allocated if in a panel of two or more. This allows seamless transition from one discussion point to the next, so excellently reviewed, pretty much word for word there. So yeah, good going. It just helps, like you said, to keep the flow of the conversation, make sure there's no awkward pauses, and really gets the interview through. And to sort of going back, touch upon making sure the questions are open. So rather than yes, no questions, sort of asking how would they approach this, what would you do in this situation? Again, you want to build that conversation element into the interview rather than just being a straight question and answer. They just feel they're being hurled questions at all the time effectively and they've got time to think. But don't be afraid to probe for more information. So if you ask a question and actually there's not enough there, or you don't think that there's enough there to be able to answer the question, don't be afraid to ask, okay, but well, then what happened? Or can you explain to me how did you get what was the result, that kind of thing. Sometimes the candidate might just be a little nervous as discussed, and so they might just need that extra bit of encouragement to give you the answer you need, because it might be that they have the knowledge and the skills, and so you don't want to lose out just because you weren't able to extract that information from them. So going into like how to conclude the interview. So again, we've already touched upon allowing for candidate questions at the end, ensuring time is there, advising of next steps, again, thanking them for their time. And the other part is to ensure you guide them out the building. There's nothing worse than you saying the interview is over and then they're just left to wander around the building and don't know where they're going. Obviously, there's also a security issue. They may end up in a room they're not supposed to with information in. So yeah, just something else to add, which may not be the first thing you think of. So what we're going to do now is go into a bit of a role play. So before this session, I sent you a job description for an operations administrator. And then I also sent you across sort of some example questions to use. You don't necessarily have to use these exactly. You can have some fun with them, see what you do. Obviously, you're each going to play the role of the candidate and interviewer. If you're the candidate, be as awkward as you want to be. It's a chance for obviously the interviewer to test their skills on what we've sort of discussed and see how they handle the situation, and ultimately put in practice what we've sort of learned over the last few slides. And then once we've had the interviews, we'll do a quick reflection, see how they went, see how we could potentially improve next time, and go over sort of further learning. So I believe we're going to have Carl as the interviewer first, and Amy will be the candidate. So only a few questions, not too long, just get you building that confidence in being able to ask these questions. So I'll leave it to you if you wanted to start. I can't remember about the introductions and also the closing as well. That's almost as important as the meat of the interview questions.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're happy to start us off.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, no problem at all. Hi Amy, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. A little bit nervous.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. I can imagine. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're going to eat you alive, so don't worry about that. Okay. So, obviously, take a seat. Make yourself comfortable. I hope your journey here today was okay.
Yeah, a little bit of traffic, but I found
Yeah.
the okay, surprisingly. I did have to use the sat nav, but
Okay. Okay. No problem. But you're here now, so obviously didn't get too lost. You
yeah.
were able to park your car okay, were you?
Yes, luckily in the visitors, yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much for coming along to meet with us today. Just to do introductions, obviously sit down, make yourself comfortable there. There's some water on the table there if if you'd like. Are you quite comfortable? You're not too hot, not too cold?
No, yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Okay,
Glad I got some water, so yeah, good.
fantastic. Okay, brilliant. So we'll do the introduction. So my name's Carl, I'm the operations manager. With us today on the panel is my colleague Kieran, who is a project program manager for Innovate UK, and then my other colleague Simon, who is a innovation lead for electronic sensors and photonics. So welcome to you. So just so you know, Amy, just to set the scene, interview will last about an hour. Okay, just really a chance for us to ask you some questions around obviously your job history, your skills, etc. What you think you can bring to the role, and just to find out a little bit more about you, really. So, try not to be too nervous. Obviously try to answer, the questions as fully as you possibly can. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So, let's get started then without further ado. So, obviously you've seen the role profile, I believe.
Yes, I have, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic, excellent. So, how do you feel your experience will relate to this position?
So I have my current role is an operations administrator.
Yeah.
My current company.
Yeah.
I do feel a lot of what's involved in the role. So sort of coordinating delivery of project timelines, etc. That's pretty much what I currently do now.
Okay.
Like I have got some relevant experience for the role. And when I did see the advertisement, I just thought it looked like a brilliant position and such a good company to work for.
Yeah.
I also currently, as part of my team, although I'm not a manager, I do step up sort of when my manager's away on holiday.
Okay.
So yeah, so I do feel like my experience is very relevant for this role, and I'm sort of keen to bring really.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. So thinking about then, sort of thinking and problem solving. Can you describe a situation where you had to solve a problem without escalation, so without needing to escalate it to a higher manager at all?
Yes. So we had a new lady join our team, and when she joined, there was trouble with her IT access. So I sort of had to sort of step up again. My manager was away at the time, so I had to make sure that she was settling into her new role and she had something to do, so she had a purpose. So I called the IT team. I managed to get her logged in to the actual sort of main computer. We did struggle with other systems. However, I sort of said, as she's new anyway, it'll be good for her to sort of sit with me, watch how I do it, so that she could learn and sort of shadow someone. I managed to get her sat with me for the day. We done the work together. I sort of showed her the ropes and some processes. And within sort of, I think it was about 2 days, we managed to get her access to most of the systems really. So
Perfect.
my manager didn't need to escalate.
Perfect. Excellent. That's a solution to that little sort of sticky problem with IT. Excellent. Okay. So thinking about then planning an organisation, could you tell us how you established and manage your priorities?
Yeah, so I do that on a daily basis. So when I start, I look at my sort of to-do list. I write a to-do list for the day.
Excellent.
Kind of go by what I know is more time pressured. Make sure the more time pressured work is done first. Once that's done, that's when I can go into sort of the less time pressured. So I personally, I find it easier to manually write it. So I have a notepad that I work through every day, tick, and obviously if I don't manage to get it done that day, it goes onto my list for the next day, really.
Okay, fantastic. To just further ask then, so what do you currently do then if you have conflicting priorities? How would you handle that?
Well, I think it depends on the priorities, really.
Okay.
So having a look at how else does that affect? So if you've got two that you know need to be done, what effect would that? So sorry, I'm not very good at explaining. So if I didn't get it done, what that could lead, what else could go wrong, or what implications could that then have on someone else?
Yes.
So yeah, I kind of look at that really and make a judgment based on that, really.
Okay, perfect. Okay, brilliant. Okay, that's lovely. Well, thank you very much. That's the end of the interview today. Just to let you know, what will happen next is we have got interviews to conduct the rest of this week. Okay, so we would expect probably we would come back to you with an outcome from your interview by the middle part of next week. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Finally, before you go, Amy, do you have any questions at all for us?
I did just want to ask, as obviously the world as it is at the moment,
Yes.
But I just wanted to see your organisation's approach to sort of how you're working in the office, or are you working at home? Would my sort of office, my work practice look like going forwards?
Yeah. Okay. So this role is actually a Swindon-based role. So see, that will be your primary location. Although currently at the moment we are sort of piloting a hybrid working scheme. And this is just constantly evolving and constantly changing in line with government advice. So at the moment, majority of the organisation is working from home remotely. Okay. But as things open up a little bit more, you know, you may well be asked, and it's not mandatory, that potentially you might come into the office a couple of days a month, for example, for team meetings, etc. You know, it's not mandatory. You know, you are able to join, you know, a team meeting remotely via Zoom and still take part in that. But you know, it's quite nice that we've all been at home for 18 months or so now. So it's quite nice to kind of re-engage, kind of see the building, etc. At the moment, there isn't any expectation that you have to come in, say, 5 days a week as you would have done pre-pandemic.
Okay.
Although we could get back to that in the future, so just be mindful of the fact. But at the moment, it's just very much, you can, if you want to come in for 2 days a week, you can book yourself a desk in the area that you would be normally sitting. And then you can come in and do your 2 days and do your 3 days at home, or whatever you wanted to do. So it's all very flexible. It's all really geared around you and what feels comfortable for you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carl.
Perfect, no problem. Well, listen, lovely to meet you. If you just want to gather your things, I'll just show you out and look forward to speaking to you, or, you know, you'll be hearing from the middle part of next week.
Great, thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Lovely to meet you today. Take care now. Good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Excellent. Well done. I know sometimes it can be a bit daunting having to do.
I was a bit nerve-wracking. I was a bit nervous. So maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's all right, because we're going to swap around now, and it's going to be your turn to ask Carl questions. Obviously, we'll go through sort of how it went in a second once this one's gone through. So we'll definitely have time to sort of talk about how it went. But yeah, if Amy wanted to start.
Yeah, of course. So hi, Carl. Really lovely to meet you.
Hello.
Today.
Sorry, beg your pardon?
How are you today?
Yeah, all good, thank you. I found it okay. I'm a little bit kind of nervous, as you are when you come for an interview.
Yeah, of course, that's to be expected. I mean, I'm just as nervous as you are. So
oh, Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Follow me, I'll show you to our office and where we'll be interviewing today.
Perfect.
Some sort of water laid out. Did you want a tea or coffee or anything, or is water okay?
No, water's actually fine, actually.
Great. So
My God, it's a big building, isn't it? So how did you find your way around this blooming big building? God.
Trust me, Carl. I mean, it took me a few weeks, but you will get there in the end.
Okay.
And we do have a little on-site like plan, so if you do ever get stuck,
Oh, thank goodness.
ask anyone. We're a friendly bunch at here, so
Okay.
if you get lost,
Excellent.
there'll always be someone to help you.
Okay, brilliant.
Very much for taking your time to come today. I just wanted to give you sort of a quick outline of what today's going to look like.
Yeah.
So on the panel is myself, Amy, as you've already sort of met, and then we've also got Tom, who is a fellow project manager, as well as Ben, that is an operations manager as well. So team. So just to start with, we'll just go through a few questions as to sort of why your experience may be relevant to the role, some competency-based questions, and then at the end we'll allow you sort of some time if you do have any questions. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. And just to check before the interview, did you get the role profile okay? So you've had a read through of what the
yes. Yeah, I did. Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. So just to start with then, I just wanted you to just give a quick overview of your background and why you feel you're relevant for this role.
Okay, yeah. I've worked in sales and admin, all of my working life really. And I've worked in a senior administrator role for BT for 5+ years. Previously worked at Swindon Borough Council and did quite a lot of admin, etc. for them. And also more recently, I worked for Honda Logistics, and I was an administrator there for them. And that's, kind of involved making sure that everything was up to date for all the drivers when they're going out and delivering all of the goods, etc., logging things on various systems, etc. as well. So lots of different system experience as well.
Great. So you sound like you're very adaptable with new systems.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So just leading on to some competency-based questions then.
Yeah.
Could you please describe to me a situation where you wanted to bring in a major change to a process that may not have been perceived as important by everybody?
Yeah, I can actually. That's happened recently in Honda Logistics. We wanted to change, the sort of booking in and out system really, because it was quite antiquated and wasn't really fit for purpose. People would come and use a biometric hand scanner every time they came in and went out of the building, and that was supposed to log, obviously the times they were in and out, and it also supposed to deduct breaks and things like that, but it really wasn't working. So people were getting paid incorrectly. Yeah, so it really caused a bit of a hassle really, and the management didn't particularly want to change it because obviously there would be a cost involved and etc. But we persevered and put together a business case to have it taken out, and then very much give people sort of base it on trust, and people obviously still sign in and out, but it's all very much manual. So people didn't think they were being scrutinized all of the time, and it just wasn't really fit for purpose anymore. So yeah, and eventually it did go through, so we had it all taken out, and now it's all done a much more manual, adaptable process.
Amazing. And did everyone buy into that in the end? It is worth.
Yes, absolutely, because people didn't get paid incorrectly. So yeah, people did.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I wouldn't want to be at the receiving end of
it. No, absolutely.
Great, thank you. And then could you also give us an example of a successful team that you've been a part of?
Yes, I think I worked for BT, we set up the sort of fibre optic kind of team, because obviously that's the way that internet, etc., for businesses and you know, our own homes is going now. So we set up a fibre optic team because that's the area that BT wanted to focus on, and we all kind of sort of applied for the positions and all spoke before and nominate, you know, kind of agreed with each other that we you know, be quite a good fit really for the team. So we all applied, and we were all successful, and we all brought very different skills and experience to, you know, the team really. We were able to kind of like feed off each other, you know, very successfully, and help and support each other because we worked on other teams together. So yeah, it worked well.
Right, and did you encounter sort of any issues? Was it sort of smooth sailing, or was there any issues sort of along the way?
There was only really sort of like issues with, you know, people thinking that, you know, the role was going to be a bigger role than it actually was, and they just felt that perhaps they were a little bit too junior for the role. But actually, when they, you know, got into the role and realised what all the sort of prerequisites were to achieve the role, they realised actually it was quite a little bit more complicated than they perhaps felt. So people felt that, you know, they were too senior for some of the roles, but actually it wasn't the case once they got embedded and settled into it.
Great, okay, thank you. That is the end of the competency base. So that's pressure off of you now, Carl. So just to let you know, so the next step, so we have got a couple of more interviews this afternoon.
Yeah.
We are aiming to have all the results by early next week. So you should find out on sort of Monday, maximum Tuesday.
Okay.
That'll give you a call with the outcome.
Okay.
Just before we sort of conclude then, did you have any questions for me at all, Carl? On the
Yes, I do. Yeah, absolutely. So am I the sort of person that you're looking for?
So I mean, definitely by your experience, I do think you've got some great relevant experience. Obviously we do have some other candidates to meet with. I think personality wise, you seem very chatty and very approachable, and I think that would fit well in our team. As a team, we are sort of a lively bunch, so I do think we fit quite well in the team, but of course it is down to sort of how the interview goes as a whole and the other interviews that we've got as well.
Yeah, indeed.
You should find out early next week.
Fantastic. And how soon would you be looking for somebody to start?
So as soon as possible, really. So what would be your notice period?
Okay, I've got this notice, but I've still got loads of holiday to take, you know, because obviously the pandemic and everything. So I could, you know, potentially be available in 2 weeks.
Great. So we do say an average turnaround time of at least 3 weeks. So we could obviously, if you were successful, we could line up sort of a start date within, say, 3 weeks. Still, if you did want to take a bit of like time off your roles, you can have a bit of time to yourself. So yeah, we could work to sort of a 3 week timeline for you.
Perfect. Okay, that works. Brilliant.
Great. Well, it was lovely to meet you today, Carl.
And you.
And again, thank you for sort of taking the time out of your day to meet us.
Thank you.
Show you how to leave, as we both know it is a very big building. So I'll
absolutely.
You sit back to your car, really.
Okay, no problem at all. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so well done, Beth. It's a bit daunting having to do a role play, but I think you both did really well in terms of handling it. So in terms of Carl, I guess I'll go to you first. How did you find it?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad actually, to be honest. It's just remembering obviously some of the key things really, isn't it? And just asking the way that you know, the candidate's going to follow it and understand what you're asking them. And you know, not being frightened to kind of like ask a question on the back of an answer if it's not a clear enough answer, I think. But it's making someone feel comfortable, it's making someone feel, you know, valued, etc. as well. And you know, it's in your own interest to, you know, do a proper job, so that when you score them, you know whether they're going to be a contender or not. You don't want to be, like we said before, wasting your time and doing it all over again in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Great interview. So yeah, it was good.
Amy, how did you find it?
Yeah, I found it okay. I actually found it more daunting being the hiring manager. Cheeky little question Carl had in at the end there about am I a good fit for your team? So I think that really sort of made me reflect to be prepared. Obviously, I hadn't discussed anything about the team, and I felt I could have gone into that at the start. So that's kind of made me realise how sort of key preparation is really.
Yeah.
I think I did okay with probing a bit more, but I think for me it really is the preparation. So I think in real life I would know who my panel is, but obviously
of course you would, yeah,
at the start, and
yeah,
I think it was more daunting as a hiring manager, but then that makes me now see how important it is to get it right first time.
Yeah, no, definitely, because even though you're interviewing the candidate, they're almost interviewing you to see if they would also be a good fit. So
yeah,
that's definitely a good point to make. And no, I think you both did very well actually. So considering we've only had a short sort of session on it, so I think you both will sort of use that to progress and hopefully have good selection processes moving forward. I said from my view, pretty good. You were setting the scene, you were asking probing questions, and you were closing out the interviews well. And I think just having those core things, almost like a beginning, middle, end, really helps structure and define the interview process. So that's like I said, that was pretty good. So reflecting back on what we discussed right at the beginning of the session. So we've discussed how to conduct an interview effectively. We've hopefully developed your knowledge and interviewing skills, going through sort of what makes a good interview, what makes a bad interview, and we've obviously practiced your interviewing skills in the role play. So hopefully you feel like all of those objectives have been met through this session. I'm just going to ask, did you have any questions regarding the session's content or anything that you feel that's been missed at all?
I just wanted to say, obviously, thank you for today, because I am due to recruit in a couple of months. It's been very useful. So one of sort of the questions I had is there, because I'm used to sort of private sector companies. Now I'm in obviously public sector. Is there sort of certain sort of structures to what you expect a candidate to answer? Because I know like with private sector there wasn't much structure, but I feel like with the interview we did today there was a lot more structure to the interview. So I'm just wondering if there's more of a structure that you expect for a candidate as well.
Yeah, I mean there's sort of questions and templates available. Ultimately though, it is down to you and your sort of your suitability compared to obviously the role profile that you have for the job. So we are there to the templates are there to guide you. So maybe you mean there's probably more assistance in that end rather than you just being sort of chucked in at the deep end. So yeah, maybe it's a bit more structured, but as you can see through today, a structured interview gives a much more deep understanding of the interview process, and hopefully it means you get more of the answers that you want to be able to make a good decision based on what you've heard.
Yeah, and how do I access those guides you mentioned? Can they be sent to me, or are they sort of available locally?
Yeah, so I'll move on to. I actually have a slide that goes there, so I just want to ask if Carl has any questions at all before we move on.
What would you do in the case, for example, if you had two candidates that you'd interviewed, both came, there was nothing to separate them to in terms of their interview scores, etc. What would you do then to actually define them down, just to find the one candidate?
I think if it's very close, I think I would probably use the option of a second assessment.
Okay.
To be able to sort of separate them out even further. So whether that's a follow-up interview really focusing on their weaknesses that have been gathered from the first interview, and seeing how they deal with that, or whether it's some sort of, for instance, if you're an engineer or something, whether it's some sort of mathematical test, or say if a data analyst, maybe some like data task that you could send them to get more of an overall picture of their skills.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I would probably recommend, but I would advise to speak to your recruitment team about that. Because they'll know the role in and out.
Okay, fab. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that side. So yeah, Amy, as you mentioned, so there are resources available on the intranet. So you can find that on the internet under the learning and development section. And then there should be a space about interviewing skills where you can find all the documentation there. We also have an online toolkit you can use, which is a bit more interactive. Might refresh, it's almost a refresh of this session, but obviously online. So say if you want to give yourself a refresher in 6 months, you could always go on that, have a look for half an hour and just remind yourself of how it goes. There are additional training sessions to supplement this. So we've got other sessions on other recruitment elements. So you've got your recruitment process, your advertising, your role, sort of more the beginning stage rather than the after stage, as it were. So you can have a look at those, potentially book on that. And worst comes to worst, if you have any more questions or can't find any materials, then we do have a learning and development email inbox. So if you just type learning and development into Outlook, we should come up and we have we'll be able to access that and be able to give you the information you need. So without further ado, that's the session over. So thank you for attending today, and hopefully you've had a good session and learnt some good things. So hopefully you can take that forward into future recruitments.
Yeah, and I'll be waiting to hear from you, Carl, if I got your job.
And same likewise, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It was
Thank you for your time. That was good.
nice to see you again, Carl.
And you, Amy. Take care.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.